I've always played only on stage or in front of the camera, remaining myself the rest of the time. I lived the role, but I did not play in life, never confusing one with the other. She was a style icon and trendsetter. She was considered the most beautiful woman in the world, but she was skeptical about her own appearance. Her legendary roles were bright and unforgettable, although she loved being a wife and mother above all else. The incomparable Audrey Hepburn quickly conquered Hollywood, but did she get fame and international recognition easily? What facts from the dark past of her parents did the star have to hide? What role was the actress terribly ashamed of? And why did Hitchcock dislike her? You will learn about this and much more from today's video. So make yourself comfortable. This is the Biographer channel, and we are starting. Audrey Kathleen Rustin, and later Hepburn Rustin, was born on May 4, 1929 in the municipality of Ixelles in Belgium. Her family called her Adriange. Hepburn's mother, Baroness Ella von Heemstra, was a Dutch noblewoman, daughter of Baron Arnoud von Heemstra, who was mayor of Arnhem and governor of Dutch Guiana, and Baroness Elbrig Wilhelmine Henriette von Aspic. Ella also had 2 sons from her first marriage. The actress's father, Joseph Victor Anthony Rustin, was a British subject and had British and Austrian ancestry. Although Joseph was born with the surname Rustin, he later changed it to the more aristocratic Hepburn Rustin, perhaps at Ella's insistence, as he mistakenly believed that he was descended from James Hepburn, the third husband of Mary, Queen of Scots. Audrey's parents were married in the Dutch East Indies in September 1926. Shortly after their marriage, the couple moved to Europe, where Joseph began working for a loan company in London. A year later, the couple moved to Brussels, where Joseph was to open its branch. After 3 years of traveling between Brussels, Arnhem, Hague, and London, the family settled in a suburb of Brussels, the municipality of Linkebeek, in 1932. Hepburn's early childhood was sheltered and privileged. Her multinational background was enhanced by having traveled to 3 countries with her family through her father's work. In the mid-1930s, Hepburn's parents were supporters of fascism and recruited and collected donations for Oswald Mosley's British Union of Fascists. Her mother met Adolf Hitler and wrote favorable articles about him for the British Union of Fascists. On Audrey's 6th birthday, her parents went to Munich to have lunch with Hitler and his other supporters and forgot to congratulate their daughter on her holiday. Joseph left the family shortly after this incident and moved to London, where he became more involved in fascist activities and never visited his daughter abroad. Hepburn later admitted that this act of her father was the most traumatic event in her life. Since that time, Audrey was afraid to blame her mother for anything, and she, in turn, tried to teach her daughter and raise resilience to any life situations. "My mother taught me everything. To draw and read, to love books and to be diligent, to restrain emotions and think first about others and then about myself. Taught me to be kind even when you want to howl like a wolf. Taught me to work and not to give up." The hardest thing for Ella was to protect her daughter from disappointment in her father. She did not want Audrey to consider herself the daughter of a fascist or a worthless person, and therefore preferred to appear cruel and unfair in her eyes in order to prevent the child from having close communication with her father. Before the Second World War's start, Ella took Audrey from the boarding school, brought her sons Alex and Ian home, and moved them all to Holland, in Arnhem, near which was the grandfather's estate. Audrey really liked Arnhem. I remembered my mother's stories about the big parental house, about the beauty of the city itself, about the wonderful parks and fountains there. I was more attracted to theaters and concert halls. Besides, I was promised that I would study dance in Arnhem Conservatory. The house really turned out to be big and beautiful, and the relatives were kind. Audrey especially loved her Uncle William. During the short months she lived with him, her uncle instilled in her a lifelong hatred, not just of war, but of violence in general. Half a year passed in peace and quiet, and only in May it became clear that the war had reached Holland. The childhood of Audrey, who was already 11 years old at that time, suddenly ended under the roar of tanks in the quiet streets of Arnhem. The Hepburn family was evicted from their rooms and into the servants' annex. With the war beginning, the girl learned to survive in any conditions. She learned that there was a much worse injustice in the world than the fact that her father left home. The most difficult thing in the first months of the occupation, until she was starving and she could still take dance lessons, was the need to hide that she had English documents, an English name, and a father in England. Then she became Etta instead of Audrey and had to speak only Dutch. In order not to accidentally reveal her English, the girl tried to be more silent and dance more. The first years, it worked, as long as there was enough strength to dance. And then the family just tried to survive. Resistance to the fascists grew stronger, so in response, repression intensified. Executions became more frequent. Fewer and fewer products were issued for cards, and more bans were imposed. Children, unaware of the dangers, often became liaisons, and the resistance movement in Audrey was no exception. She often ran around Arnhem with notes for the resistance fighters, and once, risking her own life, even searched for a downed English pilot in the forest who then hid in their house. The war caused irreparable damage to the future star's family. Beloved Uncle William was shot for killing several German soldiers. One brother was taken to a concentration camp because he was caught by a roundup and tried to escape, although he later returned. Another one miraculously escaped being shot but was taken to work in Germany. Father was also in the camp, but in the English camp because he supported the enemies. Then the hunger started. Fascists, enraged by the railway workers' strikes, forbade the food delivery to citizens. Audrey and her mother had to go to nearby villages for food, exchanging things for products. I remember my legs swollen from malnutrition and anemia. You can't dance on such logs because it was our only source of income from teaching dance. When the Germans moved the townspeople from Arnhem, Audrey and her mother went to Velp, her grandfather's house. A roof over the head was found, but under this roof it was cold and there was absolutely nothing to eat. When the food finally ran out, the girl had the idea to go to deserted Arnhem to get breadcrumbs which they had forgotten to take from home. It turned out that someone had already taken them, but in one of the abandoned bakeries, Audrey found 2 dried rolls and some apples. It turned out that the Germans had not left the city, and one of the patrols almost noticed the girl. She hid in the basement and could not come out for a long time. She had to fight for food with an enormous amount of rats. One of them bit Audrey, and when the girl managed to get out of the basement and reach Velpa, it turned out that she had jaundice. Buns and apples saved the family for a short time, but then the British began dropping food for civilians from airplanes, and thus finally saved the Hepburns from starvation. After the war, they were forced to move to Amsterdam because their house in Arnhem no longer existed. The wealthy Dutchman Paul Rubens, who headed the huge Anglo-Dutch Industrial Association, Unilever, became their patron after the war. He helped the family of the future star to get out of poverty and disease, first in Amsterdam and then in London. This man effectively replaced Audrey's father, and she later thanked him for his help and support. After recovering from her illness, Audrey began learning to dance with Sonia Gaskell, a wonderful ballerina and dance teacher. She praised the girl's tenacity, paid tribute to her efforts, although she never promised that she would become a great ballerina. And what do you think? Would Hepburn have been able to build a career in ballet? Write to us. It'll be interesting to hear your opinion. Living in Amsterdam became more and more difficult, and Gaskell decided to move to Paris. She recommended Audrey to her friend Madame Rambert, who had a famous dance school in London. Rubens had an apartment in the city, and the Hepburns decided to move there. Madame Rambert accepted the girl solely at the request of Sonia Gaskell and did not hide her displeasure. She was sharp and outspoken and considered Audrey too tall, too thin, and too immature for her age. Hepburn promised to practice from morning to night to catch up with the rest, and she really tried, but she never became a professional ballerina.
I became too tall. Yes, I just grew and grew, yes, and I did become awfully tall for a dancer then. Today, modern dance and, tastes have changed, but in those days, most dancers were tiny. Mm-hmm. And I, at the age of 14, was as tall as I am today, and on point shoes, I towered over the young men that were supposed to dance with me.
She had to say goodbye to her dream of ballet premieres, but Audrey continued to dance. Firstly, she did not know anything else. Secondly, it was necessary to live for something and not to take advantage of Rukin's immeasurable kindness. Although both mother and daughter worked, Ella designed interiors for restaurants and apartments, and Audrey was photographed in the Hats commercial, translated documents for a travel agency, and took on any available work. And yet Hepburn really wanted to dance, so she joined the Corps de Ballet of the musical. It was there that she met Kay Kendall, a remarkable, very energetic, and sometimes just crazy woman. It was Kay that the actress kept in mind while playing Holly Golightly in Breakfast at Tiffany's, and who became her loyal friend. Hepburn took on any role, any job, as long as it was not related to undressing or something like that. She was not even always indicated in the credits, and it was not considered necessary to mention her in criticism at all. Raised by a strict mother, Audrey knew exactly what a well-bred lady could and could not do. The actress always said that she was raised by her mother and the war, and it's still unknown who was stricter. After being noticed by Ealing Studios casting director Margaret Harper Nelson, Hepburn was signed up as a freelance actress with the Associated British Picture Corporation. In 1951, she appeared in the BBC drama The Silent Village and in supporting roles in the films One Wild Oat, Laughter in Paradise, Young Wives' Tale, and The Lavender Hill Mob. Hepburn had her first major role, albeit a minor one, in Thorold Dickinson's Secret People in 1952, where she played the young ballerina Nora Britanno and performed her own dance scenes. At the movie party, Audrey met her first love, the young and wealthy James Hansen. At first, she did not consider him as a potential husband at all because of the very large difference in financial status. The fact is that the Hansens were obscenely rich. The family business, which started with the production of trucks, successfully grew into transportation all over the world. Millionaire James had a glorious past. During the war, he was an officer actively engaged in sports and was quite a lover whose list of victories included Ava Gardner and Gene Simmons. James was already in his 30s when he met Audrey, and the couple soon began dating. "My mother was delighted with the appearance of millionaire aristocrat James Hansen in my life," said Hepburn. "I understood her. It's better to become Mrs. Hansen than to portray servants or furniture in third-rate movies all my life. She never believed that I had acting talent, or rather, acting was simply out of the question and the path to ballet was closed." James was charming, treated his girlfriend just fine, quickly confessed his love, and asked her to marry him. However, Baroness Ella asked her daughter not to set a wedding date yet. She wanted to understand that James's intentions were serious and that he had become prudent. Audrey was 22, he was 30, and although the young woman wanted to get married as soon as possible, she listened to her mother. So the couple decided to wait with the engagement. According to the contract, Hepburn went to Monte Carlo to shoot in the bilingual comedy Monte Carlo Baby. There, she had to play the role of a nanny who gave the baby to the wrong person and then got out of a ridiculous situation. Audrey's mother went with her and James stayed in London. He constantly called her, reminding of his love, and asked her to be faithful to him. Audrey swore that she saw nothing but the set. There, Audrey accidentally met the French writer Colette.
I was in Monte Carlo. I had a part in a movie, and a scene was being shot in the Hotel de Paris in Monte Carlo. She was staying there. It coincided with her search for an unknown to play Gigi. And that's how it all happened, and I met her. And I did tell her I couldn't possibly do a play because I'd never done a play before. And what a crazy thing to say.
However, the writer really liked this direct woman, and after several hours of friendly conversation, she persuaded her. All the days that remained until the end of the filming of Monte Carlo Baby, which was going at that time, Audrey talked with Colette every free minute. Unfortunately, she did not live very long after they met and died in 1954, but she still managed to see reviews of Hepburn's performance on Broadway. Audrey was so fascinated by Gigi that she almost failed her role as a funny nanny in Monte Carlo Baby, albeit not a serious one. And at the same time, she was terribly afraid of the theatrical stage. "Then I realized the difference between theater and cinema," the star said. "In the cinema, you can reshoot and reshoot until the film runs out. In the theater, every time is the only one. But there's an advantage in this. If the film is shot, nothing can be corrected, and on stage, you can play a little differently tomorrow." After returning to London, Audrey went to meet with Gilbert Miller, who bought the rights to the stage version of Colette's book, which was rewritten by the writer Anita Luce, to create the theatrical version, and Paulette Goddard, the actress and ex-wife of the great Charlie Chaplin. This trio had to approve or reject Colette's choice. Her fiancé took Audrey to the Savoy Hotel where the meeting took place. Even in Monte Carlo, Hepburn was very worried about how he would react to such a turn in her career, but James did not resist. He had a business in Toronto, which forced him to spend a lot of time in Canada, and the residence of his beloved in New York was quite convenient for Hansen. Hepburn came to the meeting in a man's shirt, socks, and shoes without heels and looked 5 years younger. Miller was shocked by the young actress's appearance, but invited her to audition. Despite her quiet voice and forgotten words, Audrey was still accepted for the role of Gigi.
But I've always had great doubts about myself, about my looks, about my talent or so-called talent. And so I've never believed much of it. I've believed the results, and I'm very happy with them. But I didn't change.
The British Film Company, with which Hepburn had an agreement, received recessions for the young actress from Miller because they did not see much value in her. But as soon as the contract was concluded, a request came from Hollywood for an actress to play the role of a runaway princess in the romantic comedy Roman Holiday. In general, I sailed to America with 2 offers already, from the Fulton Theater on Broadway and from Hollywood. The fairy tale continued, although every night falling asleep, I was afraid that I would wake up again in Arnhem or Velpa to the whistling of falling shells. Audrey went alone across the ocean. Her mother received a large order for interior design and could not refuse it. No one could know what would come of a Broadway performance, and Roman Holiday was supposed to be filmed in Rome in just 1 year, so Ella promised her daughter to come to the premiere of Gigi with Jimmy. During the ocean voyage, Hepburn memorized all her words, and she began to eat a lot out of nervousness. When Miller saw her again, Audrey was almost 18 pounds heavier than the last time they met, but she promised him to lose weight before the premiere. If I hadn't felt that I needed to lose weight, it would have been my last day of work on Broadway. But that time, I obeyed, the star recalled. I always obeyed if I didn't know what to do with myself, or when I knew for sure that the demands were fair. Do you think that the demand to lose weight was really fair? Write in the comments below. We read all of them. American producer Morton Gottlieb guided the young actress in her weight. He took her to Denty Moore's restaurant, introduced her to the staff, and ordered them to give her nothing but meat tartare. Thanks to a strict diet and exercise, Audrey managed to lose weight quickly, which Gottlieb was very proud of. With her partner on stage, Kathleen Nesbitt, Hepburn practiced acting and learned to speak properly, because before that she just mumbled something and had no experience of performing on stage. Her fiancé soon arrived for Audrey and nearly disrupted all rehearsals. The couple sat at night in a restaurant owned by James's family, after which she appeared at morning rehearsals in the theater with puffy eyes and a passionate desire not to listen to her partner's lines, but simply to sleep. If it weren't for Gilbert Miller, who almost put the aspiring star under house arrest, she would have failed the role, but she would have definitely become Mrs. Hanson. Gigi premiere took place on November 21, 1951 at the Fulton Theater. Despite the fact that Audrey considered herself the most untalented of the entire cast and was very nervous on stage, the audience was delighted with the young star, and her dressing room was simply filled with bouquets of flowers. And if on the first poster it was written Gigi starring Audrey Hepburn, then after a few days it was replaced by another Audrey Hepburn in Gigi, thus emphasizing the importance of the main actress. Her mother could not come to the premiere and went to New York only a month later, when her daughter's popularity had become almost common and the number of people willing to take an autograph was growing every day. Ella really didn't like the hotel for $9 a day where her daughter lived and the fact that Audrey was not given a car. But she liked the performance itself and the performance of the younger Hepburn. And although the Baroness was not used to expressing excessive emotions, her daughter felt her pride and support. The play was presented in a total of 219 performances, although it was removed from the repertoire for a while because the star had to act in Roman Holiday. And for her, Gigi, Audrey received the Theatre World Award. After the first success of Gigi, Hepburn went to Rome to conquer the film Olympus, i.e. to star in Roman Holiday. James, although he was displeased, still let his bride go, but only after she agreed to publish an announcement about their engagement. In Roman Holiday, Audrey played Princess Anne, who arrived on an official visit to Rome, but, tired of her status, ran away for a day to walk around the city with an American journalist played by Gregory Peck. Before the auditions, the actress was immediately advised to change her last name because Katharine Hepburn was already famous in Hollywood. However, Audrey stood her ground and was not going to change anything. Auditions for the role, according to Audrey, were not very successful. She played a scene from Holiday, but Thurl Dickinson, who was filming the tests, did not turn off the camera and just started chatting with Hepburn. Though she noticed that she was being filmed, she stopped being nervous. Instead, she laughed. Director William Wyler liked these improvisations, did not notice the bad acting in the scene. Instead, he saw Audrey's sly smile. About her acquaintance with him, Hepburn later said, "Going to the first meeting with William Wyler, I knew nothing about him. I had not seen a single film by the brilliant director. They only said that he had 2 Oscars of his own, 14 actors who starred in his movies also received this award, and 36 were nominated for it. Everyone could only dream of filming by Wyler, at least in one episode. Could I have thought then that I would become 15th? Oscar-winning fashion designer Edith Head worked on Audrey's image and outfits. She was delighted with Hepburn's thin waist, only 50 centimeters, and promised to make her a trendsetter. Alberto De Rossi did makeup for Hepburn in the film, and his wife Gracia was a hairdresser. Since then, they have worked together in 5 more films.
I hate this nightgown. I hate all my nightgowns. And I hate all my underwear, too.
My dear, you have lovely things.
But I'm not 200 years old. Why can't I sleep in pajamas?
Pajamas?
Just the top half.
To shoot in Rome, Audrey flew in the status of the bride of Mr. James Hansen, which gave him the right to interfere with the shooting schedule. It was awful, the actress recalled. I could not explain to Jimmy that there is no star on the set but an almost helpless girl, that there's no question of any demands, that I catch every word of the director and partners and think not at all about the deadlines for the end of filming, but about playing as well as possible. With her partner on the set, Gregory Peck, the actress immediately found a common language. It was he who became her true friend in life and a mentor during filming. Every time before the start of filming, Peck tried to make Audrey laugh so that she would stop trembling with fear, and he also supported her in every way. Of course, after the film release, the press attributed an affair to those two, although the actors had nothing but sincere friendship and mutual sympathy. But those gossips affected Audrey's relationship with her fiancé. Do you think the romance between the actors was really made up, or could there have been something between those two? Write to us in the comments. Let's discuss. Basically, I almost didn't have to play in Roman Holiday, Hepburn recalled. I felt like the same Princess Anne. Everyone around me treated me like a royal person. My mother instructed me no less strictly than the Countess instructed Princess in the movie, and I constantly wanted to escape from the strict rules of behavior and just play around. At the same time, I never forgot that I had to behave decently according to my status. The perfectionist director exhausted all the actors, demanding endless takes of each scene in the hope of finding the perfect shot, for which everyone secretly called him 90-take Wyler. During the filming of the scene where it was necessary to cry, Audrey could not do it, remembering her mother's words that ladies do not show emotions in public. However, the director's scream provoked real tears from the actress, and in the future, when she needed to cry on camera, she remembered this episode. Relationships with James were also experiencing a crisis. From the beginning, the man did not like the chaos on the set. Filming was dragging on. He was nervous, demanding to shorten the process to finish it by mid-September so that he and Audrey could fly to London to get married. James was ready at any moment to pay the studio a ransom for Audrey and finally make her Mrs. Hansen. James was eventually assured that filming would wrap up on August 25th and immediately issued a press release about the upcoming wedding on August 30th in Yorkshire. However, everything was delayed until September 30th, and on October 1st, Audrey was already supposed to be at the rehearsals of Gigi. Then, Hansen gave her an ultimatum: September 30th or never. At James's request in Rome, the actress was made a wedding dress, although the management of Paramount announced that all of the Princess Anne's outfits from Roman Holiday were kept as a wedding gift, and she could get married in a luxurious white dress from the movie. The situation was terrible, the star said. The wedding day was set, 200 guests were invited, and no fewer reporters were still expected. Gifts began to be brought to Huddersfield in Yorkshire. The daughter of the American ambassador, Sharon Douglas, agreed to be my maid of honor, and I had the Roman Holiday going on, and there was no way I could show my true self on the set when I wanted to bang my head against the wall. As a result, the wedding never happened. The couple broke up, and the actress returned to America, already free. Roman Holiday became a real hit and the turning point of the future legend of cinema, and for the role of Anne, Hepburn later received the Oscar and Golden Globe Awards.
I want to say thank you to everybody who in these past months and years have helped, guided, and given me so much. I'm truly, truly grateful and terribly happy.
The Paramount studio decided that Hepburn's popularity could be very profitable, so the actress didn't have to wait long for her next project. Audrey was offered the role of Sabrina in the romantic comedy of the same name after reading the play based on which the movie was to be filmed. The young star herself asked to play. Paramount considered the role ideal for her, bought the rights to the screenplay, and work began. However, it did not bring joy or simple pleasure to any of the participants, and if there were no strict contracts, the movie would probably never have seen the light of day. Before filming, Audrey was allowed to go to Paris to see what was worn in Europe and to pick up clothes for Sabrina herself from one of the Parisian fashion designers. Although, according to the contract, the wardrobe was to be selected by Edith Head herself, who worked on the image of Princess Anne and even received an Oscar for her efforts. The trip coincided with the London premiere of Roman Holiday, so Audrey first went to her mother, who never dared to move to America, and then visited the then young fashion designer Hubert de Givenchy and selected the entire wardrobe for the film. The friendship of the actress with Hubert would be lifelong, and those two would change the trends of fashion and style more than once. Audrey would constantly recommend her favorite designer to create her movie looks, and he, in turn, would give life advice, support her in difficult moments of her life, and always be there when needed. Those two would never have a romantic relationship, but they would truly love and respect each other. That was the end of the positive moments of Sabrina. Billy Wilder, who was assigned to make the film, suddenly began to change the text. Screenwriter Samuel Taylor, after seeing the edits, refused to work on the script, and it was assigned to Ernest Lehman. As a result, most of the text was written by Wilder himself. Lehman edited it, and all this already during the shooting and at night, so that at dawn in the studio he could give a new text with lines to the actors who had to learn their words immediately. Most often we didn't know exactly what we were going to shoot tomorrow. We studied the text as we went, got nervous, and got angry. Hepburn recalled, "When Cary Grant turned down the role of Linus, Wilder gave it to Humphrey Bogart. He didn't get along with everyone on the set right away. It seemed to the actor that all were against him, so he was angry most of the time. And he took out his anger on his younger partner, whom he often called an English dilettante who imagines herself to be an actress." Hepburn later said, "Bogart teased me as much as he could, clinging to intonation, to the smallest stutter, doing it himself at every step, and I had to play love to Bogart's character, and it got harder every day." But with Bogart's screen brother William Holden, on the contrary, the actress had the best relationship. The couple had a passionate affair that almost ended in marriage, but Holden deliberately deprived himself of the opportunity to have children, and Audrey dreamed of a large family. Everyone suffered during the shooting process. Humphrey and William were constantly drunk and often fought with each other, due to which makeup artists had to paint over their bruises. Hepburn played love to someone she hated. Lehman was rewriting the text at night. The cameraman could not find the right angle for filming, and the other actors quarreled with each other every day. Later, Hepburn admitted that she had never had such terrible conditions during filming in her life. At the pre-premiere screening, Audrey invited Givenchy to evaluate his creations on the screen. However, Edith Head was listed in the film credits. The actress was unhappy that Hubert was not included in the list and demanded it to be corrected. But everything was left as it is because Edith was bound by a contract with the studio, unlike Hubert. At the Oscars, Sabrina was presented in 6 nominations, but won only 1 golden statuette for costumes. After receiving the award, Head did not say a single word about Givenchy.
What are you trying to say?
Well, I'm just trying to make it worthwhile. What's a krona these days? No self-respecting prime minister would offer kronen.
No self-respecting waitress would take dollars.
Good girl.
By Christmas 1953, it was announced that Jose Ferrer and Audrey Hepburn had been named the Best Actors of the Year in the annual poll of film critics, much to the latter's delight. At a party dedicated to Roman holiday, Gregory Peck introduced Audrey to Mel Ferrer, a well-known actor at the time. It was mutual love at first sight. However, at that time, the man was already married for the 3rd time, and to his first wife. He immediately started a new divorce process, although Hepburn was in no rush to get married. Mel, inspired by the beautiful actress, decided to produce Undine on Broadway, where he played the knight Hans, who fell in love with a water nymph. Audrey was supposed to portray her. Alfred Lunt, who was famous at the time, became the director of the play. Hepburn was not happy with this idea because she did not want to play on stage anymore, and it turned out she was right. Work on Undine turned out to be the most difficult in her life, after which she declared that she would never play in the theater again. It wasn't the acting itself that was difficult, but the tearing between the directors and Mel's instructions. In the morning at rehearsals, she heard one thing from the director and partners, and another thing from Ferrer in the evening. There was no desire to quarrel, and Audrey tried to get along with everyone, but it only turned out worse. It got to the point that Ferrer threatened the director to leave the play and take Hepburn with him. The actress couldn't stand it anymore and declared that she would really leave, but also from him. The premiere on Broadway took place in February 1954. Undine was received with enthusiasm. Alfred Lunt received the award as the best director of the season. However, critics did not appreciate Mel's performance, and his future mother-in-law was not delighted with him. After the end of the theater season, the couple went to Switzerland. Mel insisted on the wedding, but Audrey's family and friends dissuaded her from such an act. The star herself was tired of endless filming and a large number of performances and just wanted to rest. Thanks to the screening of Roman Holiday in a local Swiss cinema, Hepburn could not even leave her hotel unnoticed. Everyone asked for an autograph, imposed their company, and did not let the new celebrity rest. Financial problems also greatly contributed to the awful mood. Despite very successful projects, there was a catastrophic lack of money. The admirable actress lived extremely modestly, and for Roman Holiday and Sabrina, she received much less than her partners. Theatrical earnings were small, and life in New York was expensive. Mel, who was then filming in Italy, took his beloved to a quiet place where she really revised her views on life. In her chosen one, she now saw the guardian of her peace and a reliable partner. So, on September 24, 1954, Hepburn and Ferrer got married in the town hall of Buix in Switzerland. And the next day, the couple had a church ceremony. It was modest, only the closest relatives were present, and Audrey's mother cried all the time. After the wedding, the newlyweds went to Italy. I wanted to become an exemplary housewife and mother, learn to cook Italian dishes, bake rustic bread, fell in love with spaghetti, happily took care of our 2 dogs, many cats, and a charming donkey. I just lived. Now all contacts with Paramount were handled by her agent Kurt Frings, whom Audrey was introduced to by her husband. She did not go anywhere often, and at that time, Mel was conducting difficult negotiations about filming Ondine. The producers did not want to simply transfer the created version of the play to the screen because the widow of the play's author, Giraudoux, asked for too much money for the screenplay rights. Mel chased success, wanted recognition, and expected the same from his wife. Mel began to simply manage my life, the actress recalled. If at the same time he locked me in Villa Betania, which we rented, I would not mind, but he gradually began to dictate everything to me. What to play, what to wear, what to say, how to behave, and I wanted one thing: a child. The young couple was running out of money, and it became clear to them that very soon they would have to act anywhere and in any role just to live. And Hepburn had a miscarriage, after which the actress experienced severe depression. She had to work to escape from sad thoughts. In the spring, the couple agreed to film in War and Peace. Mel was to play Prince Andrew and Audrey, Natasha Rostova. Hepburn's fee was 30 times more than the fee for participation in Sabrina, but it was much more modest for Mel. The entire film was incredibly expensive, large-scale, complex, and equally unprepared. Producers Carlo Ponti and Dino De Laurentiis, for some reason, were in a hurry, setting the start of shooting on July 1st. At the same time, the Oscar-winning director George Stevens called the star and offered her to play Anne Frank. Audrey answered with a categorical refusal because she knew very well what it was like to survive the war and did not want to experience it again, even on the screen. Stevens was persistent and even brought Anne's father to the star, the only one who miraculously survived the concentration camp from their large family. And still, Hepburn could not agree to this role. As a result, Anne Frank was played by Millie Perkins in the film. I hope that George Stevens wasn't mad at me, although he had nothing more to offer me, but I really couldn't play Anne Frank because that would mean returning again to the terrible years of the occupation which I tried so hard to forget. Meanwhile, preparations for the filming of War and Peace were just boiling. Director King Vidor hastily selected 50 actors for roles with words. Costume designers sewed more than 20,000 outfits, which were simply impossible to buy. Horses were brought from all over Europe, about 10,000 of which were required. To film a Russian winter in the middle of a hot Italian summer, trucks hauled in hundreds of tons of artificial snow, and military museums rented out vintage cannons for filming. The producers made the mistake of breaking the translation of the novel into parts and giving each to a separate group of screenwriters, not caring at all that different people would write in different styles. This process took 3 weeks, and the result was appropriate. King Vidor said that he clutched his head when he saw a script of 1,000 pages, each part of which existed independently. Then several writers were hastily invited to rectify the situation. Still, the movie was very long and difficult to watch. The film was shot in just 2 summer months and 2 autumn months. The bet was made on beautiful scenery, the scale of filming, and the fine acting. But it was also not easy to play. The producer's mistake was to combine Hepburn and Farron into a love story. Farron and I simply could not play in front of the camera with neither passion nor even love. It is ours and only ours. Neither I nor he are capable of showing our feelings to the audience. Already at the film premiere, it was clear that neither the star cast, nor the shooting scale, nor the huge amount of money spent saved the film, and neither the audience nor film critics could like the hastily made epic. The movie received only moderate reviews from critics regarding the scale of the project, beautiful scenes, and pretty Natasha Rostova. Henry Fonda in the role of Pierre Bezukhov was scolded for his gloom and depression, and Mel in the role of Prince Andrew for his perfect dispassion. The relationship between Farron and Hepburn after the end of the project also became cooler. Are you familiar with this movie? If so, share with us your thoughts about the actor's performance in it. We'd love to read it. War and Peace did not become a box office hit or even just a popular movie, and when the grand advertising campaign of the film studio ended, it was immediately forgotten.
All is over. Only I'm so tormented by the wrong I've done him. Tell him I beg him to forgive. Forgive me for everything.
Audrey's next work was Stanley Donen's musical Funny Face, in which she portrayed a bookstore saleswoman tempted by a free trip to Paris. Her partner on the set was Fred Astaire, who played the role of a fashion photographer who made Hepburn's character a beautiful model. A modern fairy tale, clothes by Givenchy, music by Gershwin, and live shooting in Paris did not compensate for the separation from her husband because at that time Mel was shooting a movie with Ingrid Bergman. Moreover, Fred Astaire, who was 30 years older than his screen lover, was very complex due to the age difference and therefore was often not in the mood. And although the director made almost no comments to Hepburn, simply explaining what exactly her character should feel, Astaire repeatedly stopped the shooting in annoyance when he thought that Audrey was acting implausibly. However, this negativity was overshadowed by the dance scenes because Fred was a master dancer and almost every actress dreamed of being paired with him. During one such scene in a cafe, Donen insisted that Hepburn add white socks to her all-black outfit so that her movements would not blend into the background. The actress was very upset, thinking that it would look ridiculous, and got into a quarrel with the director. However, having calmed down, she still agreed to wear white socks, and as a result, they really looked appropriate, and the audience followed her feet during the dance. Audrey later apologized to Stanley for her tantrum. At the same time, Hepburn's mother came to Paris because she really wanted to see what filming was like. There, she became friends with the author of Funny Face, Leonard Gersh. He was happy to talk with Baroness von Heemstra, show her the city as he saw himself, and did not let her get bored. However, the filming process left Ella with negative emotions because she did not understand the commotion and chaos on the set.
Joe, give me the words. Heartbreak, longing, tragedy. Wet your lips.
Basically, during the work there were many moments when everyone was afraid that nothing would work out. It was very difficult to dance in the rain that was just chasing the film crew in Paris and to sing at the same time. Of course, all the songs were recorded separately, but in the frame they had to clearly open their mouths for the words. Moreover, the grass was wet, the feet were clinging to something, and the threat of slipping and falling made the actors clumsy. The shooting schedule was written down to the minute because closing the Eiffel Tower so that the actors could dance unhindered on its platform required, in addition to money, thousands of approvals. And location on filming, especially in places popular with tourists, is always difficult and very short. I didn't manage to become a prima in the ballet, but I danced at the foot of the Eiffel Tower and in the squares of Paris with Fred Astaire. For that alone, it was worth learning to dance in occupied Arnhem or suffering from my own imperfection at Madame Rambert's in London. The film was successful because it turned out to be fun and moderately easy. Having appeared in the last joint project, the film Meyerling, the couple decided not to act together anymore. Numerous offers of roles and requests for interviews were almost daily, but Audrey's public relations agent, Henry Rogers, was under strict instructions to politely decline to speak with the press, and Kurt Frings to decline roles of various nymphs that charmed adult men. Hepburn was tired of portraying Cinderella. She wanted serious work, and soon she was offered such a project, the role of Sister Luke in the drama The Nun's Story. This film is unlike any I've ever acted in, and the role of Sister Luke is unlike any of my roles except the last one, the one I played for the last show, now I know it, 5 years of my life being a goodwill ambassador of UNICEF. After reading the novel, the actress realized that her agent had found exactly what she needed at that time, a film about a spiritual search. The screenplay, based on Catherine Holmes' book of the same name, was written by Robert Anderson, who also worked on Undine. At that time, Audrey's relationship with Mel became simply cold, and she really needed understanding and ordinary male love. She was invited to come to Hollywood to meet with Anderson, Zinnemann, the film's producer, Blanc, and the author of the book Holm. The movie screenwriter met Audrey at the airport. They began a real romance, which Anderson later openly talked about in his book After, which Hepburn was very unhappy with. The actress quickly realized that all of Robert's passion was rather a product of loneliness than true love for her. Moreover, the star still really wanted children, and Anderson, like Holden, could not have them. Marie-Louise Habitz lived in Los Angeles together with the author of the book and was the prototype of Sister Luke, whom Hepburn was initially afraid to meet. However, after meeting Habitz, whom everyone called Lou, the woman became very close. "We became friends for life," said the star, forming, as they called us, the union of the three H's: Holm, Habitz, Hepburn. This soulful friendship, even hundreds of kilometers away on the other side of the ocean, has helped me to get through difficult moments of life more than once. The first thing that surprised the star after starting work was the thoroughness of preparation for shooting. The director of The Nun's Story, Fred Zinnemann, categorically did not want to rush during the preparation period. He personally spoke to several hundred women to find those who would play en masse. Fred found many among the Roman aristocracy. In addition, he invited 20 ballerinas from the Roman opera. Zinnemann not only studied the locations on which to shoot, he involved the entire female cast, led by Anderson, on trips so that they could experience the atmosphere of the monasteries firsthand. The actresses who played the nuns lived, ate, and slept in the cells, prayed with the sisters, learned to walk like them, and stand like them. The star later recalled this period of her life: prayer at 6:30 in the morning, a very modest breakfast, all-day obedience, and silence, because talking was not part of the evening prayer. And after that too, it was January, and it was damp and cold. The monastery cells were practically not heated, and we refused any indulgences, so we were simply turning blue from the cold. But the main thing was not even subordination to the daily routine and observance of the vow of silence. In order to understand the real experiences of the nuns, the actresses spent several days in a hospital for lepers, helping to alleviate the pain of the patients. So when Zinnemann's filming finally began, they didn't just know the script, they lived every scene. "You can't play something without feeling it yourself," said Hepburn. The creators wanted one thing: to make a film worthy of the beautiful novel of Catherine Home and the fate of Maria Louise Habits, and also for the audience to correctly understand their intention. It was during the shooting of the nun's story that the star realized that the pursuit of noisy success is not the most important thing in life. If you're really good at what you do, success will come on its own, but it will give you a happiness that you can't get in the pursuit of fame. If it was freezing in the monastery cells in January 1958, it was suffocatingly hot in the Congo. Despite the numerous vaccinations given to the actors, they had to be afraid of a wide variety of diseases, spiders, poisonous snakes, and beetles crawling onto the set again and again. The performers of the main roles really lived like nuns, often limiting themselves in many ways so as not to disturb the inner feeling, and the entire crew also behaved strictly. "Though I didn't quit smoking, surprising the local population," Hepburn said, "they never saw nuns with cigarettes and long mouthpieces." Zinnemann shrewdly explained that I was an American nun. It seems that from then on, half of the Congo was convinced that American nuns should smoke by statute. And yet, Audrey almost disrupted the filming, although not of her own free will. When the film crew returned to Rome, the actress began to suffer from renal colic. The attack was terrible, but she endured the pain patiently. Doctors insisted on surgery to remove the stones. Zinnemann and the rest of the cast were shocked because only part of the footage was shot, and Hepburn appeared in almost every frame. However, Audrey's prayers were heard. The stones came out without surgery, but she still had to spend some time in a hospital. Then she learned that Mel's friend, through the Red Cross, had found her father, who was living in Dublin at the time. The actress would meet him, but more on that later. When filming was completed, the entire crew was very pleased with the result, but the management of the Warner Brothers studio where the movie was shot thought otherwise. Officials found the film gloomy, boring, and oversaturated with real details. Everyone was upset, especially Zinnemann. All that remained was to wait for the premiere. The financial terms in Audrey's contract were very good: $200,000 fee and 10% of the profits after the royalties were paid off. But after the experience during the filming, the actress was least worried about financial issues. On the day of the premiere, everyone was more nervous than ever, but they shouldn't be. The Nun's Story became one of the highest-grossing films in general and the most profitable of those in which Hepburn acted personally. But she didn't worry about the money, although the interest brought the star about $1 million a year. She was happy because her work was appreciated by the public. The film was even nominated for an Oscar, but did not receive a single golden statuette.
Dear Lord, the more I try, the more imperfect I become. I seem to fail in charity, humility, and obedience. Pride has not been burnt out of me. When I succeed in obeying the rule, I fail at the same time because I have pride in succeeding.
Such success greatly supported Hepburn because 6 months before this film there was another premiere, Green Mansions, a film after which the actress promised herself never again not only to act alongside Mel, but also to star in his movies. In this film, shot immediately after The Nun's Story, everything was bad. The script, the lack of drama in the text and liveliness in the lines, the artificial jungle in the pavilion, and the boring performance of Hepburn in a duet with Anthony Perkins. A huge amount of money, $3 million, was spent by the Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer studio in vain. I honestly played everything that could be played in a completely empty text, the star admitted, even trying to liven up the love scenes with Perkins, but Anthony was clearly not in love with Rima or me. He not only did not feel passion, but also didn't want to play it. It's even worse than Insensible Mel, although Farrell portrayed love and Perkins didn't do either. As a result, there was everything. Exotic animals placed in artificial jungles, astronomical bills for their food because some needed only shrimp, some needed fresh horse meat, and others ate nothing but wheat sprouts. Wild, primitive music, the same dances, and even a small guitar for Perkins. There wasn't just the movie itself. The artificial jungle, no matter how hard the illuminators tried, looked artificial. The music hurt the ears, the dances looked like some kind of twitching, and the acting was horrible. It was a complete failure. Only the performance of a tiny fawn, little Eep, was recognized as good. Eep was happy to be photographed for commercials, and not only and usually without Hepburn. I would like to forget about the existence of such a film altogether and pay the studio myself so that they did not release this disgrace on the screens. But there was also Mel, for whom the possible success meant a lot, and there was no success. In 1958, the star, wanting to avoid a collision with a car that was overtaking her, crashed into the car of actress Joan Laura, who was driving ahead. Laura's lawyer stated that this incident led to the mutilation of his client, but they were never able to discover these mutilations. Audrey sympathized with Joan. She would like to pay some amount as compensation for her guilt, but the young actress did not want to hear anything. Apparently, she needed the scandal with Audrey Hepburn much more than the money. The court did not find Hepburn guilty, but she did not drive anymore. Meanwhile, Kurt Frings, not relying only on the success of The Nun's story, found 2 roles for Audrey at once. In Huston's western The Unforgiven, with a lot of riding scenes, and in Alfred Hitchcock's film with the working title No Bail for the Judge. The actress wanted to star in Hitchcock's movie for a long time, so she agreed without even looking at the script, which she later regretted. On the set, Hepburn got used to doing everything herself. Besides, during the filming of War and Peace, she learned to ride a horse quite decently, and therefore she refused the double. It was a fatal decision. The fact is that Audrey was pregnant, and Huston in Unforgiven was in a hurry to shoot her scenes as soon as possible. During filming, the actress fell from a horse called the Devil, which turned her upside down. As a result, Audrey suffered damage to 2 vertebrae and 4 broken ribs. She was immediately hospitalized at Beverly Hills Hospital. "I don't know how I would have endured this emotional pain," said the star, "if Maria Louise Habits had not suddenly appeared in my room. The one that I recently played in the film came to help me in such a difficult moment. Lou read to me, told me something, just distracted me with conversations. She couldn't relieve physical suffering, but she alleviated mental suffering. That's when I understood the true purpose of the nuns' service as sisters of mercy. They really can't always take away pain, but they can soothe." Audrey returned to filming, although she was still in a lot of pain, and even mounted the same devil. This time the horse did not dare to throw her off, but the film was still not successful. The star already had a clearly visible belly, and she and Mel went to Switzerland in a rented house in Bergenstock. She was already preparing to become a mother when one day she felt a severe stomachache. The child could not be saved. Surviving this tragedy, Audrey closed herself off from people. It was then that she finally read the script for the Hitchcock film, which she'd been putting off for later, and she was shocked because her character was supposed to be raped. After her child's loss, Hepburn could not even imagine how she could play such terrible scenes, and Hitchcock would not agree to take them out of the film. On the contrary, it was precisely on these scenes that the entire plot should have been built. The contract with the studio was signed, and Audrey could simply not refuse to participate in the filming. Another pregnancy saved the actress. "Now I guarded myself like a crystal vessel, and I was a crystal vessel. A new life was born in me, and no filming, no movie was worth breaking it off." The only thing the star allowed herself was an appearance at the London premiere of The Nun's Story and a trip to Dublin. She really wanted to see what impression such a serious job would make on her mother, because this was her first real serious role. And in Dublin, Hepburn and her husband were supposed to meet with the actress's father. Both meetings brought only pain and disappointment to the star. The mother greeted her daughter coolly, but she never knew how to express her feelings. The meeting with Dad was not better either. Joseph Rustin dropped the Hepburn surname and lived with his young wife, Fidelma, in Dublin. At the very beginning of the war, as a member of the British Union of Fascists, he was arrested and spent the entire wartime in the camps. After the war, the man settled in Ireland. "The Rustins and I met at the Shelburne Hotel," Hepburn recalled. "I looked at the elderly, but still handsome father and tried to understand how I felt about him. So many times, presenting our meeting with him, I dreamed how I would tell about the successes, how he would be surprised, happy, say that he always wanted to see photos of his daughter in the newspapers. None of this happened. Rustin didn't care about his daughter's success, her rewards, and the fact that he would soon become a grandfather, too. And although Audrey was very upset by their father's indifference, she was glad that she had finally found him. Now that she knew he was alive and healthy, she knew where to send him help. And she really sent it until his death in 1981, and before that she congratulated him on the holidays, told him about her life, but always felt a gap between them, although she did not understand why it happened. Her relationship with her husband improved after the trip to Dublin. They eagerly awaited the arrival of their firstborn. Audrey's belly was bigger than her, and she jokingly called her unborn baby Winnie the Pooh. Soon the star gave birth to a boy named Sean, who weighed 10 pounds and really looked like a bear from a famous cartoon. The parents baptized the child in the same church where they were married. I was overwhelmed with congratulations, gifts, flowers. I was starting a new life, as if I was reborn. I became a mother, and now I've had a real family. Sean was given dual citizenship. Swiss-American and the United States ambassador who was present at the christening solemnly handed Audrey his son's passport and also put an American flag in his fist. The baby grabbed the toy so tight that it was not easy to pull it out of his strong hand. Hepburn tried very hard to make Sean's life no different from the lives of other boys. She remembered how her mother raised her and tried to take into account all the Baroness's mistakes so as not to make them in her own methods of upbringing. She praised Sean for his successes, scolded him when necessary, and always showed him her endless love. Although Audrey did not want to act anymore, in order to spend all her time with her child, she still had obligations to the Paramount studio to which she owed 3 more films. The script offered by Kurt Frings was simply impossible to reject. For $750,000, the actress was offered to play Holly Golightly, the main character of the film based on the novel Breakfast at Tiffany's. This book was one of the most popular in America in those years, and its author, Truman Capote, was the most famous writer. A role in such a film meant an absolute success, and for Hepburn it was a gradual transition from the roles of princesses and saints to new images that flashed more and more often on American screens and were in no way similar to the pure and naive girl she'd played until now. And no matter how much the star didn't want to fly to Los Angeles for filming, Mel also found things to do in America, and the couple decided to go there together, and Sean invited a nanny to take care of the baby while his mother spent time on the set. Truman Capote believed that Holly should have been played by his favorite Marilyn Monroe and did not agree with the studio's choice. Even when the movie was already released, the writer told everyone how the actress spoiled his Holly Golightly, how she didn't see the main things in the book because the character was real. She has a strong character, not at all like Audrey Hepburn. But the star did not try to be like Holly from the book. She saw her character as diametrically opposite, who hides all her weaknesses and fears behind a mask of courage and indifference. The iconic scene in the film at first glance is ridiculous, where a girl in a black evening dress with a perfect hairstyle gets out of a taxi early in the morning on an empty street in the center of New York, parades to the window of the Tiffany's jewelry store, takes out a plastic cup with coffee and a roll from a bag, and begins to eat breakfast looking at diamonds. Hepburn later said, "Everything there was unbelievable. An evening dress at dawn, the perfection of a hairstyle after a stormy night, some student breakfast with a smartly dressed beauty and diamonds in a window left overnight." But life has shown that director Blake Edwards' calculation was accurate. This scene became almost a calling card of the film, and mine too. Henry Mancini wrote the song Moon River for the star. Its melody was not complicated. The composer tried to ensure that the actress's vocal data was within her power. A few weeks of guitar lessons and vocal lessons allowed Hepburn to perform Mancini's creation decently, and the melody itself accompanied the image of Holly throughout the film. They decided to rewrite the film ending and make it more positive and life-affirming as the audience wanted to see it, which Capote did not approve of. He believed that the film creators and the actor could not convey what the author had in mind. However, the film did not interfere with the novel, and both creations became popular. Revenues at the Tiffany's jewelry house increased significantly after the movie's release. The owners even offered Hepburn to show their jewelry for very high fees, but she refused. She didn't want to become Miss Diamond after the nun's story.
Taxi!
I never could do that.
It's easy.
After filming Breakfast at Tiffany's and its premiere, the Ferrer couple returned to the rented Villa Britannia in Bergenstock, and family friends Sophia Loren and Carlo Ponti lived next door to them. At that time, Sophia starred in Two Women and was nominated for an Oscar, where she and Hepburn competed in the Best Actress category. When we were nominated for an Oscar at the same time, me for the role of Holly Golightly in Breakfast at Tiffany's, and Sophia Loren for Casaria in Two Women, and the statuette went to Sophie, I wasn't upset, as her performance in this film was too strong. Breakfast at Tiffany's was very liked by the public. Hepburn became increasingly popular and overshadowed the success of her husband, who could not find himself either as an actor or as a director. Later, she did star in Ferrer's Wait Until Dark, playing a blind woman, but Mel was then not a director, but rather a producer, and probably that's why the film turned out to be quite successful. However, the crack in the relationship became more and more visible, and the couple was kept together only by their common son, Sean. Hepburn had one more film left on her contract with Paramount, as did her former lover, William Holden. So the studio decided to reunite the two celebrities on the set of Richard Quine's light comedy, Paris When It Sizzles. The author of the script was George Axelrod, who also wrote the script for Breakfast at Tiffany's. The terms of payment were good, and the filming took place in Paris. The star's outfits were again from her favorite, Givenchy, and the partner was the cheerful Holden. The story itself was also quite simple. Audrey was supposed to play the young assistant of a Hollywood screenwriter who helped him overcome writer's block by acting out his fantasies about possible plots. However, despite all the positive moments, the shooting process turned out to be difficult and unpleasant. First, just as the filming began, Audrey was informed that their villa had been burgled with diamonds and a Golden Academy Award statue stolen. Later, however, Oscar was not found far from the house, but the actress realized her defenselessness for the first time in her life. The shooting itself was overshadowed by the other thing. At that time, Holden's light passion for drinking turned into a serious one. The actor drank from morning to night, often simply did not understand what he was saying and doing. For Audrey, hugging in the frame with a constantly drunk Holden was unbearable, but she held on as best she could. Her emphasized kindness to a colleague was misinterpreted by him, and Holden decided that Hepburn would not mind rekindling their old romance. No amount of reminders that she was married and had a child helped. When the wasted Holden was removed from the gutter through which he tried to get to the third floor in the star's dressing room, Quine convinced the actor to go to the rehab. It was a disaster for the studio because downtime meant losing money. The film creators deliberately invented a new character, the writer's boss, played by Tony Curtis, and began diligently patching holes in the plot due to the forced absence of the main character. After treatment, Holden returned to the set, but not for long. Addiction took its toll and he was again admitted to the clinic. Sensing that everything was not so simple, the journalists started attacks on the still unrealized film and the critics were merciless in advance. Moreover, the studio decided not to hurry with the movie release on wide screens, which also did not benefit it. At the same time that William went to the clinic once again, Hepburn got the script of the witty and confusing thriller Charade in her hands. The film was directed by Stanley Donen, whose Hepburn had already starred in Funny Face. This time, the star's partner on the set was Cary Grant. Their meeting was organized by Donen in an Italian restaurant. Audrey and Cary were visibly nervous, and Hepburn also accidentally spilled a bottle of red wine on Grant's jacket. The whole restaurant turned around at my scream, the star recalled. Cary's jacket had to be sent to the dry cleaners, but he acted all evening as if nothing had happened and begged me to stop asking about it. I felt terrible, and the next day I received a caviar as a souvenir from Grant, whom I offended, and I started crying. Shooting was easy and without any special incidents. At the same time, Audrey learned the amazing news. Warner bought the rights to the film adaptation of the musical My Fair Lady, paying an incredible amount at that time, $5.5 million. This meant that the actors' casting for the roles began. The film budget threatened to exceed $17 million, making it the most expensive at that time. The musical itself was incredibly popular on Broadway, and now Warner's hoped to surpass it with worldwide popularity. Thanks to the actress's agent, Kurt Frings, the role of Eliza Doolittle went to Hepburn. She dreamed of it from the very first minute she saw the musical on stage. The role seemed easy to her technically, but very difficult vocally because there were many complex songs which required great vocal range. Remembering the long rehearsals and classes with the vocal teacher for the film Funny Face, Audrey felt confident that she would be able to handle the musical parts in My Fair Lady as well. Daily vocal lessons and rehearsals with a diction specialist who corrected my classically correct pronunciation to a typical Cockney one gave their results. I began to sing quite decently and spoke as if I had spent half my life in the London slums. The star had the most conflicts with makeup artists in her first image, an uneducated slob. Audrey didn't like the dirt under her fingernails, disheveled hair, and plain clothes, the real dust she was covered in for most of the movie. While the extras walked around in chic outfits from Cecile Beaton, she even began to regret that she accepted the role of Eliza because of the small number of beautiful dresses that she would have to wear in the frame. Once, the star got so nervous that she ran into the dressing room and started trying on luxurious outfits to feel better. It all ended first with an impromptu fashion show and then with a photo shoot. After that, Hepburn calmed down a little and let go of the situation. The next blow for the actress was the news that the voice in the songs would not be hers, but Marni Nixon's. According to the studio, the lead actress did not pull out the vocal parts. No matter how much Audrey argued that she could sing better, the answer was categorical. You will still get your million, but we don't have the money to re-record your vocals. On the set, the star also turned out to be an outcast. The rest of the characters were played by the same actors who appeared in the play of the same name on Broadway. Only Eliza Doolittle was not played by Julie Andrews, and others did not like it. As a result, Audrey still managed to make friends on the sets with her colleagues, but in America, it was not possible to convince the audience and critics that she played no worse than a performer in Broadway. Europe, which had not seen Julie Andrews on Broadway, received Hepburn well. The film turned out great, gathering an unprecedented harvest of Oscars, 12 nominations, and 8 statuettes. The film was nominated for all possible positions except for one, for the Best Female Role. Audrey Hepburn was not among the awardees, nor even among the nominees.
With better, more, a fine, puff. I can't.
I say, Higgins, are those pebbles really necessary?
Julie Andrews, who did not get the role of Eliza Doolittle because of her, received an Oscar that year for the role of Mary Poppins. In her speech, she first thanked the Warner Brothers because by refusing to take her in the film, they secured her participation in other, more successful projects. Hepburn had to present the Oscar to her co-star Rex Harrison for the Best Male Role, and he found nothing better than to thank her and Andrews both, saying that he was pleased to stand between the two beautiful ladies who played with him on stage and in cinema. After the awards ceremony and the discussion in the press, Hepburn, who was very distressed by her failed role, tried to repair her family relationship, which was badly damaged by the filming. The couple pretended they could still make it up, but deep down, they knew it was the beginning of the end. At Audrey's request, they bought a house which became her real home. It was located in the village of Tolochenez, almost on the shore of Lake Geneva in the Morges area. It was a very small villa, spacious enough to live alone, and hosted a small number of guests. And there was a wonderful view, fresh air and peace, despite the highway passing by. The villa was named La Paisible, which meant the peaceful. Later, the couple bought another house in Marbella, Spain, with a view of the sandy beach among the greenery where you could have a good rest in the summer, but Audrey continued to consider Tolochenez her home. Hepburn's next project was the light ironic comedy How to Steal a Million. Her partner on the set this time was Peter O'Toole. The costumes were again created by Givenchy. The director was her favorite William Wyler, and the filming took place in Paris. I haven't had so much fun playing in a long time because during most of the filming there were at least a couple of people who treated each other coolly and sometimes even started fights, like Bogart and Holden on the set of Sabrina. Such general adoration of everyone by everyone was only on the set of Roman Holiday. The fashion designer created an entire collection for his muse, which later made Hepburn a style icon and role model. Women copied everything, from suits to a nightgown and a hat in the form of a helmet with large glasses. The comedy turned out to be wonderful and light, but there were also those who went to the film a second and third time just to get a good look at Givenchy's creations. There was only one negative thing in the film. The security got more work because there were a lot of fools who believed that stealing masterpieces was very easy. A few museums were even forced to put up notices that robberies like the one on the screen were simply impossible. But the museum workers did not take offense at the creators of the project. On the contrary, they watched their comedy with pleasure and laughed at the funny robbers. Hepburn admitted more than once that it was the easiest film in her career.
Do I look all right?
Fine. Why?
I just met this fellow and he treated me like I was a leper or something. Just wanted to give him back this.
Oh, really? Well, have a drink. Good for morale.
And on the set, she found out that she was pregnant again. However, it was not possible to give birth this time. Audrey had a miscarriage right after Christmas in her new home. The marriage was also coming to a logical end. The worst thing about a broken marriage is my guilt towards Sean. We didn't fight with Mel the way my own parents did, with yelling and insults, but Sean was still fatherless, and I filed for divorce myself. All the property of the couple was divided equally, although Hepburn was more wealthy. The star set only 2 conditions. Her son remained to live with her, and their joint villa, La Paisible, became her home. Ferrer agreed to both conditions without arguing. After the divorce, Audrey felt lonely. She wanted a new relationship, but she was afraid that men would be more attracted to her star status than herself. During one of her trips to Rome with her son, she met the psychiatrist Andrea Dotti, who had been in love with the actress since the days of Roman Holiday. The star said about her new chosen one, "Handsome, young, 9 years younger than me, smart. He loved social life, was cheerful and energetic. He and Sean really liked each other and became friends. He surrounded Audrey with care, told her that he wanted his own family and children, and soon proposed to her. The star, to the surprise of herself and her family, agreed to become a wife for the second time. Andrea's relatives were happy about the engagement despite the fact that the bride was only 14 years younger than his mother. The Baroness, of course, was displeased and warned her daughter against a hasty marriage. Hubert Givenchy was also not happy with his friend's decision and refused to make her a white wedding dress with a veil. As a result, the star came out of the city hall holding Andrea's hand in a short dress made of pink jersey and a handkerchief tied under her chin. This outfit made everyone so excited, said Hepburn, that for a while the hatters were simply out of work. Brides from all over Europe rushed to buy handkerchiefs instead of veils. The family moved to Rome. Now Audrey had a large family. Sean adapted easily in Italy and learned the language very quickly. The mother-in-law was friendly and taught the daughter-in-law to cook Italian dishes. During this period, cinema was completely forgotten. However, everything was not so simple. Andrea wanted to see a movie star next to him and not just his wife. He liked the popularity, the attention of journalists. He began to give interviews, promising Audrey's return to the screen. Reporters were constantly waiting outside the house, met Sean near the school, and did not allow Dottie to pass. Hepburn really did not like the excessive attention to her son and did not understand why she simply could not be a woman and mother and why she would not finally be given peace. After some time, the actress realized that she was pregnant again. She spent the summer at Dottie's villa and then returned to her home in Tolocines in the fall. In February 1970, Audrey's second son, Luca, was born. Hepburn was very worried about how the eldest son would treat the youngest. However, she shouldn't worry at all. Sean took care of the baby brother no less than his mother, trying to play with Luca every free minute. 10 years of difference did not prevent the brothers from becoming very friendly, although it often happens otherwise. It was a happy period in the star's life. She got up, made breakfast for the whole family, drove Andrea to work, drove Sean to school, and took care of Luca. Sometimes with their younger son, they even went to see Dottie at the clinic and brought him dinner if he stayed on duty. The children were happy. Andrea was proud of the appearance of another man in the family while not distinguishing between sons. And although Audrey dreamed of living in Tolocines, her husband had a job in Rome, so she had to put up with it. When the dangerous Red Brigades invaded Rome and began to kidnap people, Hepburn was afraid for her children and took them to La Possible. Andrea still lived in Italy, but at first he often visited the family. Once, Richard Lester, who intended to shoot the return of Robin Hood, came to Tolocines and offered Audrey the role of a friend of the elderly Robin, Abbess Marion. Robin Hood himself was played by Sean Connery. By the way, we have a video on the channel about this legendary actor. We'll leave a link for you in the description below this video. The actress was satisfied with everything, even the terms of filming. Lester promised to shoot during the summer vacation so that Hepburn could take the children to Spain and not disturb their academic rhythm. Moreover, a considerable fee was waiting for her, $760,000 for 6 weeks of filming. The film was immediately renamed Robin and Marion. Lester really shot quickly. The manner itself was completely unusual for the star. After all, the director needed 2 or 3 takes for one scene instead of the usual 40 to 50. Lester set up several cameras that did everything at once. General plan, medium, and large, targeting different actors. If Audrey liked to work everything out, clearly understand each future move and only then go on the set, Sean Connery, on the contrary, easily played everything at once. But everyone supported the actress, helping and not demanding anything. My boys didn't like their mother in rough monk's clothes at all, but they really liked Robin Hood's weapons and the opportunity to feel like they were among real medieval outlaws. The film itself did not become a masterpiece because the main characters were not young and not too happy, and the viewer of that time was not interested in the personal experiences of elderly people who decided to start life over and try to remember their love. It seemed that Andrea should have been pleased. His wife was back on the set, they were interviewed again, they went to America for a promotional campaign for the film where Dottie had plenty of time to talk to representatives of the film industry, talk to journalists, smile, and feel like a star. The same was true at the Oscars in 1976 in Los Angeles. Dottie was much happier about everything than his famous wife, who, on the contrary, was terribly nervous. The marriage began to crumble like a house of cards. The star learned about the numerous betrayals of her young husband and did not want to close her eyes to it. The couple divorced. Andrea did not show nobility and tried to defend his guardianship of Luca. It cost the actress incredible efforts and a lot of money, so that her lawyers managed to get her son to live with her. In 1979, Hepburn reunited with director Terrence Young for the film Blood, but it was a critical and box office failure. After the final divorce, Audrey returned to La Possible, where now, besides her and her sons, lived her mother. Sean was already working as an assistant director, and Luca was still studying. And it was then that the one she had been waiting for all her life appeared in Hepburn's life. Robert Wolders. By the time of the meeting with Robert after Christmas 1979, Audrey was somewhat ill with star sickness, which she later admitted. She demanded only the best for herself on the set, walked with a bodyguard, treated the members of the film crew politely but aloof. At one of the events, the actress was seated next to a tall and handsome man. He turned out to be Robert Wolders, an actor and widower 7 years younger than Hepburn. He was Dutch and filmed in America, like Audrey, which also became one of the factors that pushed her to this man. They talked for a long time that evening and later became friends. Next to Rob, I felt calm and even comfortable. I didn't need to remember that I was a star. I didn't need to follow every word, every look. A trusting relationship turned into love. The couple never got married, but lived together. However, Audrey felt the happiest with Robert. They lived calmly and measuredly in La Placide and walked their dogs in the morning, read, listened to music, sometimes attended social events, made sure that they had nothing more to do in the movies, raised Hepburn's sons, and were happy.
I mean, I sort of stopped wanting to travel around because it did mean leaving my sons. And so I stayed home to enjoy them, you know. I would have hated to make movies all around the world and never to have known my sons.
Hepburn's last major role in a feature film was in 1981 in the Peter Bogdanovich's comedy They All Laughed. The film, however, was overshadowed by the murder of one of its stars, Dorothy Stratton, and received only a limited release. And 6 years later, Hepburn starred with Robert Wagner in the made-for-TV movie Love Among Thieves. In 1988, Hepburn became a Goodwill ambassador, and in the same year, together with her husband, she first went to the UNICEF mission to Ethiopia. The star said, "For the next 5 years, Robert was by my side not only at social events, but also in military helicopters, in the back of cars, among adults and children who needed help, in front of militants who needed to be persuaded to pass this help, in airports, trains, organizations, at meetings and charity events, at food distribution centers, and at receptions for the President of the United States." In recognition of the star's work with UNICEF, then President of the United States George H.W. Bush presented Hepburn with a Presidential Medal of Freedom. Before moving on to the last chapter, we would be grateful if you subscribe to our channel and ring the notification bell to never miss our new videos. We'd be very grateful. Since her last film work, a cameo as an angel in Steven Spielberg's Always in 1989, Hepburn has completed only 2 projects, both critically acclaimed. The first one, Gardens of the World with Audrey Hepburn, is a PBS documentary series filmed in 7 countries during the spring and summer of 1990. It was preceded by a 1-hour special in March 1991, and the series itself premiered nationally on PBS on January 24, 1993, the day of the actress's funeral. Another project was the spoken word album, Audrey Hepburn's Enchanted Tales, which featured readings of classic children's stories and was recorded in 1992. It earned her a posthumous Grammy Award for Best Spoken Word Album for Children. The star died of colon cancer on January 20th, 1993, at her home in Tolentino. Audrey's last words were, "They are waiting for me, angels, to work on earth." Hepburn was posthumously awarded the 1993 Emmy Award for Outstanding Individual Achievement for an episode of The Gardens. The star was also posthumously awarded the Jean Hochschild Humanitarian Award for contributions to the development of humanity by the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences. Her eldest son, Sean, came to receive the award on behalf of his mother.
She believed every child has the right to health, to hope, to tenderness, and to life. On her behalf, I dedicate this to the children of the world. Thank you.
And in 2002, at the UN Special Session on Children, UNICEF honored Hepburn's humanitarian legacy by unveiling a statue of Audrey's spirit at the UNICEF headquarters in New York. Hepburn's legacy has survived even after her death. The American Film Institute named Hepburn the 3rd greatest female star of all time. Many biographies have been written since her death, including a 2000 dramatization of her life called The Audrey Hepburn Story, in which Jennifer Love Hewitt and Emmy Rossum play the younger and older Hepburn respectively. Her son and granddaughter, Sean and Emma Fair, helped create a biographical documentary by Helena Cohn called Audrey. Sean Fair also founded the Audrey Hepburn Children's Fund in memory of his mother shortly after her death, with the aim of continuing her humanitarian work. He ran the organization in collaboration with his half-brother Luca Dotti and Robert Wolders, his mother's partner. Andrea Dotti also became a patron of the pseudomyxoma survivor charity, dedicated to providing support to patients with the rare cancer that was fatal to his ex-wife. Pseudomyxoma peritoni and Sean Fair became a rare disease ambassador from 2014 and throughout 2015 on behalf of the European Rare Disease Organization. Audrey Hepburn was an incredible woman. She experienced a difficult childhood. There was a lot of pain, envy, and suffering on her way. She knew how to live the emotions of her characters in the frame, but she did not always easily get out of difficult situations in real life. She was remembered by the audience as the frivolous Princess Anne, the seductive Holly Golightly, and the cunning Nicole Bonnet. Still, the actress considered the role of a mother and the role of a goodwill ambassador to be the main roles in her life. Audrey Hepburn handled both perfectly. After all, the sons grew up to be wonderful people for whom their mother would not be ashamed, and charity became a much more common thing than during the years of her work in UNICEF. We hope we've answered all the questions you might have about our star today, so we'll be grateful for liking this video. And don't forget that our channel has a lot of fascinating stories about famous figures in the film industry. You can find little-known facts from their lives, interesting incidents from the film sets, and much more by clicking on the video that appeared on the screen. You are watching the Biographer channel. See you very soon.